Can you hear? No.
Can't hear you, Kevin.
How's that? Better? Okay.
A little bit.
We will start again. First time with a headset. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Grimsby. I'm Kevin Hansen, as the chair. I'm going to just briefly introduce the 4 other members that sit on this committee. We have Danielle Beck, if we can just have you wave for the screen so we know. We have Dylan Bailey. Dylan. We have Herb Nobes. There's Herb. And Adam Mottershead. And then staff with us this evening, we have Nancy Simon, Secretary Treasurer, and then we have, I believe we have a representative from the Planning Department, Walter Basic. There he is, Walter. We're just going to do a little brief introduction for this Zoom format, and then we'll outline the general procedures and then put you into the waiting room and then call you forward one by one for each application and the delegates that are proposing to or asked to speak to the specific application. So live streaming, members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly and or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. Any letters or correspondence are public information. For the purposes of Zoom meeting, applicants will be placed in the waiting room until your application is heard. The purpose of the application, the relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak as well. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Copies of the decision will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. To request a copy of the decision, please email the Secretary Treasurer. That's Nancy. Copies of the decision will be mailed to the any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the local planning appeal tribunal, LPAT, within 20 days of mailing the decision for consent application and within 20 days of the making of the decisions for minor variances. So again, everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed, but voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. All members of the committee have viewed the properties on the agenda this evening and are familiar with the lands that are subject to these applications. In terms of conflicts, do any of the members of the committee have a pecuniary interest with respect to any applications before us this evening? Adam, you have one?
Actually, I don't have a conflict. I'm actually just...
I can't hear.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be abstaining from Mud Street, Margaret, and Maple Avenue, as I'm currently out of the province and didn't actually have an opportunity to view the properties.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Belongs.
Okay, I can't hear anybody, sorry. Anybody else? No? All right, is there any request for withdrawal or adjournment? We have one this evening, I believe.
Yes, we have a request for a deferral for 10 Shoreline Crescent.
Okay. And then we're going to have a motion then for the minutes of the previous meeting. So I have a motion resolved that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting March 16th, 2021 be approved as circulated. Do I have a mover and seconder? Maybe just raise your hand. Adam, seconder. Danielle, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any, was carried. And then the second motion before we begin is the resolve that the delegations be approved as circulated. There's a list of delegations for each application this evening. A mover and seconder on that. Danielle, seconder. Dylan, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any. Was carried. Okay, so then we will go to the first application. So we'll put everybody in the waiting room. Yes, we're going to do with the deferral first. And that is the request for deferral for 10 Shoreline Crescent. So we have a request by the applicant to defer. We've had this application before us, and they're making some minor adjustments as well. So they've requested deferral. So we are going to deal with that motion first before we begin. So the motion is resolved that submission A05-2110A Shoreline Crescent be deferred. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Danielle and Herb. Any further discussion on this matter? All those in favor say aye to defer. Opposed, if any, was granted. So hopefully we'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you. And then before we open up, I can't hear anybody, so I'm going to say we. Yeah. It's going to create a problem. Try it again.
Can you hear anybody now, Kevin? Nope.
I don't know if it would be a technical
There we
suggestion,
go.
but
Yeah, I can hear it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, we got it. Okay, so
I think he's got it.
I got it.
Trouble with his mic.
Okay, so the first application then after deferral, minor variance at 412 Mud Street. We'll have the Secretary Treasurer go through the application and any correspondence that we've received.
So this is an application for 412 Mud Street. The application is for the construction of an accessory building. It's to permit an accessory structure with a maximum height of 5.25 meters to the midpoint of the peak, whereas 4.5 meters to the midpoint is allowed. There were no comments or objections received. This is the slide for 412 Mud Street showing the location of the property. Next slide. This slide shows the elevations, the front elevation, rear, right side, and left side. Next slide. This shows the floor plan. Next slide. The applicant submitted some photographs of neighboring properties with similar structures to what he's proposing. Next slide. I think that might be it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have the owner or the representative here? Wesley, do I see him? There he is. Wesley, hi.
Hi.
Did you wish to outline any further information on your application or the reason for the request for the benefit of the members? Oh, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. No, I don't. Well, thank you.
Nothing to add? Okay, I'll open it up first to the committee members. Anybody wish to ask a question of the owner? Herb? Hi, Herb.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to know the reasoning for the request to have the variance.
Mr. Pont?
Yeah. Just for storage reasons. Just because I have a camping trailer I like to store indoor in the wintertime, and other stuff in my garage in there too. And it's just to protect from the elements of the weather.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee members at all? And I don't see any neighbors here or anybody else presenting. I'm assuming you've had a discussion with or talked to the neighbors about this and haven't heard anything or any feedback from them?
I have. I've talked to both my neighbors, and they're both okay with it. No conflicts. So.
Okay, and then we have the staff report that we went through, basically outlining their reason for not objecting to the application. So do we have any, before we call for the motion, is anybody else? Oh, sorry, I didn't see. Danielle, did you have some questions or a question? Oh, you're still on mute, Danielle.
Sorry, I'll
There we
start
go.
again. Even though I do this every day, I still always forget to unmute myself. I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. No questions. I just wanted to make the comment of I did visit the site. This is a pretty rural area. There's a lot of accessory buildings that are fairly large. The one immediately to the east that sides onto Wolverton Road there is pretty prominent along that street. So I have no concerns with this application. I think it meets the 4 tests, and I would be willing to move the application for approval when appropriate.
All right, anybody else? Questions, comments before we ask for the motion? Being no one having their hands up, I'm just going to read it. So resolve that submission A0921 at 412 Mud Street West by Wesley Ponce be approved. Do we have a mover and a seconder on that motion? Danielle? And Herb? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye then. With show of hands. Opposed, if any? None noted, it was carried. So it was approved, subject to the 20-day appeal period. Thank you for attending.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't know what that means.
So Nancy, yeah, it was approved, subject to anybody appealing it within the 20 days before it becomes formally approved. But you can speak with Nancy about the process now in terms of what you're allowed to do before then, if anything.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for explaining that. I appreciate it.
Walter, can you please lower the screen?
There we go.
Mr. Chair, do you prefer that the screen be lowered as soon as the presentation is over so you can see everybody?
Yeah, unless there's a request to pull something back up. I don't know how easy it is to go back and forth, right? Sometimes we have questions from the committee members that want to see 1 or 2 of the plans again. So we can have a little pause and then pull it down. That's fine. It does make it easier because I can't see everybody on the gallery view or the side view. When people have their hands up, I got to scroll up and down. So that's good.
Thank you.
All right. So the next application then, we're just bringing them in, is for 25 Margaret. So is everybody here before we start? We have the owners here, right? Okay. Nancy. So Nancy will just read the application again and any correspondence that we've received. You've probably seen it already. You should have an email copy, and then we'll open it up to the committee members. Go ahead, Nancy.
So this is an application made by David and Holly Gibson. It's an application for a maximum lot coverage of 35%. No, sorry. It's for a proposed on-ground pool in the west side yard, and it's to permit an on-ground pool in the side yard, whereas the rear yard is required. So we have have comments from the NPCA. The lands are impacted by a floodplain, and they have requested conditions to verify that the floodplain will not be impacted. Conditions are included in the staff report. Public Works has verified that there is no longer an easement on this property, but are requesting that the applicant verify that the easement has been removed from title. We also have an email that just came in regarding the fence. Walter, can you lower the screen for a minute, please? This is from the neighbor, and I believe it's at, can't see what address this is at. Just bear with me here for a minute. So this is from the neighbor at 38 Palmer. He said he would like clarification on the final height of the fence. And also, will a gate be installed between the existing house and the garage? In addition, he wanted to comment that the vegetation has been removed on the 25 Margaret property, and this has resulted in a loss of privacy for him. He would like the existing vegetation on his side to be preserved during the fence installation at 25 Margaret. And also, he has indicated that given the construction has already started without our notification, we want to be clear that we will not accept any of the costs for the project on Margaret.
Yep.
Is that in terms of correspondence? Okay. All right. Would the owners like to speak or address some of the comments or questions that were raised?
The fence is going to be gone through Carruthers Landscaping, which is the company that we have hired to work on this project. We started on the back at this point because of the fact that it's we were just clearing it out so that we could put a patio in that area. And to our knowledge, that would have been okay. The trees did come down today to make room for the brickwork that's going to be laid, and we fully intended on paying for the fence.
Okay. Just for clarification, because we just had the letter read, but where would this neighbor who wrote that letter just recently be? Are they directly behind you then?
Correct.
To the
yes.
south?
Yes.
South, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, just we're highlighting there. Okay, so their concern in that letter, if I understand it, was that vegetation on their side was protected, which I assume you've done. You're aware of where the property line is?
Yes, and we'll make sure that nothing is impacted on their side.
Okay. And then you've read the comments that were addressed in the planning report that were sent to you, I assume. Do you have any response or comments about that? One more particularly, I guess, is the bigger one, or the bigger concern, I guess, was from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, the NPCA. Did you have any comments, or have you met with them, or did you have any conversations with them about their concerns?
In the summer of 2020, we did have them come out and look at the property, and they had indicated that it was okay to go ahead with this application. They did indicate that an in-ground pool would not be possible, to which point we started to look at on-ground versus above-ground pools. So I think, and the size of not moving into the front yard at all, and trying to modify all of the plans to fit NPCA and Grimsby's requests.
Okay. Are there any questions from the committee members at all? Sorry, I might not see you because I'm in the side view again. Herb?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
That's good.
The pool itself, is it, you say it's going to be an above ground pool?
It's an on-ground pool. The way that the land is sloped, we won't be needing to dig into the side closest to the creek, and we'll go very minimally into the ground. So it'll be a 4.5 foot approximate on-ground pool.
Okay. Also on the overhead that was there, had the aerial view, it showed the property line of the neighbors behind you, quite a distance onto your lining up with your property. Does their property line line up with your property line along the west side?
The west side.
We're just going to put it on the screen for a second.
No, it does not. You can kind of see in behind, when we moved into this house approximately 3 years ago, the back garage, as we call it, was existing. On the right-hand side, you could see a smaller little shed on that back garage. Their property line is pretty much in line with the right-hand side of the garage all the way down.
Oh, okay, so your property line lines up with the yellow line on the west?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's encroaching into the Niagara Conservation Authority drainage. Is that correct?
I can answer that question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This subject lands were part of a subdivision that was registered in the 60s, and it was the last property of the dead end of Margaret Avenue. The lands to the west and to the south were part of a more recent draft plan of subdivision that was approved and registered. And it's through that subdivision process so this was part of a farmer's field. So it was through that subdivision process that this block was created to maintain an open water course through the subdivision and eventually out to the lake. So this property boundary, as you see it here, was in existence prior to this subdivision being created. And there was a temporary easement that the developer negotiated with the previous owner of the property to enable some grading to be done along here in order to accommodate the water course. So that's why the grades are as they are. It was part of the subdivision approval process as part of the natural drainage system that's running through the property adjacent to the subject lands. And then since then, the easement has been removed or has been released by the town. So the one condition is that we just want to make sure that it's actually been taken off the title of the property. So that's the one condition that we've asked for. I hope that answers the question, Herb.
Yes, it does. Thanks, Walter.
Okay.
I see that's been put in the draft motion here that was circulated. That one condition that you're talking about, the easement, because I see it's not in the planning report, right? Other than maybe in general discussion, but you're suggesting it be put on the motion, which was on here. It just wasn't in the planning report, so.
It was requested by the Public Works Department.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee members? Have I got everybody here? 1, 2. Yes. No other questions then? So have you seen the conditions that they're proposing? The biggest concern, of course, would be the NPCA requirement for a works permit, right? And then the easement should be hopefully a formality with your lawyer, I would suspect, if it's been removed from title. So And I don't see any neighbors here other than the one letter that we read, but it sounds like that's been addressed. So do we have a mover and a seconder of the motion? But maybe I'll have a person, if you've got the motions in front of you, maybe you can make the motion if you want to do so with the, if you want to go through the specific conditions that they're proposing. That might be the best. Somebody want to make that motion? Dylan?
Yes, so I'd like to, so just begin, Mr. Chair, resolve that submission A10 from there.
Yep.
And read it out from there.
Yep.
So I would move that it be resolved that submission A10-21, 25 Margaret Avenue by David and Holly Gibson be approved with conditions. Those being, one, that the Public Works Department require confirmation that the easement has been removed from the title. Two, that an Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority or MPCA work permit be obtained by the applicant, and that the NPCA conditions of approval are addressed. And then there are 4 sub conditions.
Yeah, you don't have, no, that's fine if everybody's got them. So unless there's questions or concerns with those, do we have a seconder on that motion then? Danielle? Any further discussion on these? All those in favor say aye. And opposed, if any? Was carried. So again, it was approved with the conditions, and then there is a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank you for attending. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so the next application, if we've got everybody coming in, is for 462 Maple Avenue. So just to briefly outline, we'll have Nancy read the application and then any correspondence that we've received, both from planning or other staff internally. And then if we've received any correspondence from neighbors, et cetera, those will be read, and then we'll open it up first to the member or the owner or the representative, if you'd like to elaborate a little bit on it or respond to some of the questions and points raised in the correspondence that Nancy reads. And then we'll open it up first to questions from the committee members, and then we'll open it up again to members of the public if you'd like to speak or address the committee with some of your comments or concerns. So Nancy, if you want to first go through the application.
Yes, this is for 462 Maple Avenue. It's the proposal is a new storage and cabana structure, and it's to permit a rear yard setback 1.07 meters, whereas 1.30 meters is required, to permit 1.07 meters from a street line, whereas 4.5 meters is required. So we have correspondence, a letter from Nick and Irene Brown at 20 Admiral Circle. They're in opposition to the application as they feel it is excessive and detrimental to the neighborhood. There's also a letter from Peter Penton at 36 Stonegate Drive. He has concerns that the structure is too large and it will impact their privacy. There's also a petition from 13 neighboring property owners who are opposing the application. Public Works has noted that they have no objections, but they are requesting clarification as to how the proposed washroom in the structure will be connected to existing services. Niagara Region has noted that if during construction there's archaeological artifacts are found, that the Ontario Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture has to be notified, and a licensed archaeologist would need to carry out an archaeological assessment.
Oh, one more.
So this is the proposed structure here.
On the bottom right-hand corner, abutting Stonegate Drive.
Okay, Walter, okay, this shows a better picture. Can you go back, Walter? So you can't see the structure because the gallery view. But anyways, this is the house. This is their rear yard. The structure is going in the rear corner here. Next slide. This is a better picture of where they're proposing that the structure goes. That's looking towards Stonegate Drive. This is a through lot. Next slide.
So
That's it. This is the proposal, but a little too
Yeah.
quick there, Walter.
Now, maybe if we could, maybe Walter, if you could briefly step through your planning report on this, given the nature, it's kind of a unique property. We don't often get through lots, so maybe you can outline the request in a little bit more detail and some of the commentary that you've put in your report, maybe for the benefit of the members and those that are attending. So we've got a few people here in the neighborhood, so if you don't mind.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. Again, it's not a through lot. The lot has frontage onto Maple Avenue, and it extends almost to Stonegate Drive, but there is an intervening 1-foot reserve extending approximately from this point to this point here, which prohibits access onto Stonegate Drive from this property. As we've seen in the picture here, the property is fully fenced. The proposed structure is in this location here, right in behind the mailboxes. And again, in this corner here. So Stonegate Drive would be directly in behind this fence, and the neighboring driveway would be right beside the fence on this side. Now, in terms of our planning analysis and conformity with the 4 tests in the Planning Act, again, the proposed setback isn't or the proposed variances are for the rear yard setback and for the setback from the street line. So the zoning bylaw requires a setback of 1.3 meters, I believe, to the rear lot line. They're proposing a reduction, and it requires a 4.5 meter setback to the street line, whereas they're proposing a 1.6 meter or 1.3 meter setback, I believe, from the street line. Again, the structure isn't, the variance that's being requested isn't for height or size of the structure. It's just for the location of the structure. In terms of the 4 tests, I might go back to this picture here. One of the concerns that we would have is because of the odd configuration along Stonegate Drive, all of these properties here were all in existence prior to this subdivision being developed. And these properties had frontage onto Maple Avenue, and the new properties on Stonegate Drive had frontage onto Stonegate Drive and are reversed, and don't have frontage onto Maple Avenue. So all of these houses face face Stonegate, and all of these houses face Maple Avenue. So it's an odd situation where you have a rear yard next to a bunch of front yards. However, the saving grace for this, from our perspective, is that the configuration of Stonegate Drive at a bend here, and there's another bend as you follow, you don't see it on the picture here, it bends to the right as you're going south. There isn't a consistent streetscape. So if this was a straight street and there were houses facing the street all the way up and all the way down here, and a structure was proposed here, then it would be interfering with the consistency of the streetscape along Stonegate Drive. But however, since Stonegate Drive bends at this point, it's our opinion that the structure in this location will not have a significant detrimental impact on the streetscape. There is a significant tree at this corner here, which would significantly block the view of the structure from the street as you're approaching from the south. Another issue that we would consider is that if there was a sidewalk on the west side of Stonegate Drive with the driveway here, we would be concerned that if there was a structure in this location, and a fence for that matter, we'd be concerned that the visibility of people exiting this driveway would be blocked for any oncoming pedestrians by any structure in this location. But that's not the case. The sidewalk on Stonegate Drive is on the opposite side of the street, And from that perspective, we don't have any concerns about the location of the structure from a safety perspective. Having said all that, accessory structures are permitted by the official plan in a residential designation. They're permitted by a zoning bylaw in the particular zoning, residential zoning categories. The only variance that's being requested is the location of the proposed structure. So a structure is permitted here, but not within 4.5 meters of the street line here. Okay. So it's in our opinion, it's consistent with the intent of the zoning bylaw, consistent with the intent and purpose of the official plan. We feel that it's a minor variance and it's appropriate for the development of the land. Thank you. I hope, and I'd be willing to answer any questions anybody has.
All right. So first, any questions from Walter? Or the committee members at all? How about the app? Oh, Dylan?
Sorry, Walter, just to be, or through you, Mr. Chair, Walter, just to be clear on sort of these, sort of on the measurements, because it talks about, so the applicant, so it's required to be 4.5 meters from the street line. Was that the black line? Is that the black line, or is that from the on the diagram? And because it,
yes, there's
I guess what I'm not understanding.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just that the setback from the street would actually be 1.37 meters, as there's a 0.3 meter reserve between the rear lot line and the street line. So can you kind of walk me through, like, there's the edge of the road, and then there's, I know, the grassy area where their mailboxes are, and then there's the lot line, I would imagine, where the fence is. And then is there 1.3 meters from there? Is that what I'm, or is what, 1.37 meters from there and then the structure?
Right. The street is here.
Yeah.
There's a standard boulevard from the physical road to the lot line. Okay. Is 5.5 meters. So there's already a 5.5 meter setback from the actual street. There is a 0.3 meter or 1 foot block of land that's owned by the town of Grimsby between the road allowance and the property. Okay. So the property itself does not have frontage onto Stonegate Drive because there's a 1 foot, we call it a 1 foot reserve. Okay. So the setback, the 1.37 meter setback, and again, I apologize for the numbers. I was just going by memory, which isn't that great these days. So the setback that's being proposed from the structure itself is 1.37 meters to the black line here, which is the edge of the road allowance. Then there's a 0.3 meter or 1 foot reserve. And then from the property line to the structure, there's a 1.07 meter setback. Does that explain it?
Does that help you, Dylan? So normally the setback from the street obviously wouldn't come into play in a typical backyard of someone trying to develop a shed, right? You'd have to keep the 1. I was going to say 4 feet roughly, 1.5, 2 meters or whatever from the rear property line. But because of the situation that this lot is very unique, I called it a through lot, but yes, correct that it isn't quite academically or legally, I should say, a through lot because of the 1 foot reserve. So in this case, the setback from the street comes into play for an accessory structure that normally wouldn't be a factor, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so any other questions for Walter before we open it up to questions from the applicant? No? All right. So does anybody, the committee, have a question for the owners or the applicant here this evening? Herb, you want to go first?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I was just wondering, is there any issue with moving the structure closer to the house so that it can meet the requirements for the setback? Because I feel that this here, where it is located, is proposed location, is being intrusive into the front yard of the house next door to it. And
sorry, I'm so sorry. It's breaking up for us. Like it's really hard to understand. I'm so sorry.
Okay, through the chair again. could we get some clarification why the setback cannot be be met?
Did you hear the question?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
so
we looked at many options, sorry.
Go ahead.
We looked at many options with the whole plan that we had for the backyard. Towards our other neighbor, we do have mature trees. We have 3 mature trees that we're hoping to keep. And it also, if further towards the house, it would be blocking our main entrance to the backyard. So this would be our only option for this structure. If we bring it too close to the house, we do have windows in that side of the house that would be blocked. So it's really, that was our only option, to have it at 1.7 meters instead of 4 meters.
Does that answer your question, Herb?
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
the lot has another width to it on the other side, and which could be closer to the house, which wouldn't block any of these accesses or windows. Could it not be moved to the other side of the property and meet the requirements for the setback?
So you're talking to the north?
Correct.
Yeah,
This
in
corner,
that
yeah.
corner, that exact corner, we do have the 3
So-
mature trees that we were hoping to keep.
In the north side.
yeah, right
Yeah,
there.
right
yeah.
there, yes.
And then our access to the yard is really from that side. So if we would put the cabana closer to the house, would make it very difficult for the access. This again was more of a,
Made more sense.
it made more sense to us,
Layout,
of course, and
yeah.
that's why. But again, we don't want to interfere with anything. It's just that was our best position to our best found position for the lot, for the size.
All right, any further questions, Herb? No? Anybody else? I think Danielle had her hand up. Yep, Danielle?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. I'm just looking at the other plans that were submitted. Can you just confirm that you will also be proposing a pool in the backyard in addition to this cabana?
Yes.
Okay. And thank you for that. I just wanted to confirm that that was still the intent. The second question that I had was actually the same question that I think the Capital Works Department came up with. And have you put any forethought into, or do you have any plans on how the bathroom is going to be serviced in the rear yard?
Sorry, say that again, if you don't mind.
Apologies, yes. Do you have any plans on how that bathroom within the cabana is going to be serviced? How services are going to be brought to that cabana?
So the services are going to be obviously brought to the house through the main line of the house.
Okay. Thank you. It does appear, Mr. Chair, that they have retained engineers and architects for this. And as noted previously by Mr. Basic and by yourself, the variances that are requested are only for essentially the rear yard setback and the street yard setback, which is also kind of the rear for my purposes of thinking. The concerns with the location of it, from number 42 Stonegate, from what I can see, is that's kind of your driveway area. It's not a amenity area. Generally, you hear there's more concerns when it would be located in someone else's backyard or side yard where their living space is. So as of right now, I don't see any concerns with the requested variances. There's no request for height or area. So those are my comments for now. I'd like to hear from the neighbors as well too.
All right. Any other questions from the committee members first? Dylan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question in looking at the letter outlining some concerns by neighbors. Are you planning to, access, or how will you be accessing the yard for building this? Did you, would it be through, would it be through Stonegate, or would it be through?
Yeah, so just for the removal of soil, obviously when we're digging the pool and just maybe bringing some material, obviously we will be accessing it. We think it would be easier to access it from Stone Edge, and of course anything that gets damaged, which obviously we're gonna try obviously not to, but if it does, we are fully responsible. We're gonna make sure it gets back to the original look.
Okay, and I guess through you, Mr. Chair, I would just note that, there are also mature trees, I guess, on that boulevard as well. So there would need to be some kind of, you would need to heed those if there's going to be equipment that goes back in. That's
right. Yes, I did talk to the contractor, and he's well aware of it, and he's going to make sure that all that gets protected. We did use this access in the back when we built the house, and again, we try not to create any damage whatsoever. We're going to be very careful because again, we're living there as well. So
sure,
we're going to make sure that this is well kept and maintained.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, one more question, perhaps because I honestly don't know, but through you, or for you, Walter, is it when we get to the planning stage or whatever permits and approvals are done, the issues that are raised about sort of the access through Stonegate and vehicles being parked and disruptions and blockage of with vehicles and things like that, is that something that the town would manage through the permit process or something of the like? I'm sorry, I just don't know what. Looking at the concerns, I just wasn't sure what the town's role would be in this.
Yeah. In terms of parking, vehicles are permitted to park wherever parking is permitted.
That's
in
right.
the road. The trees themselves are in the boulevard, so they are municipal trees. They're owned by the town. And any access, I believe a temporary permit would be required for access off of Stonegate from the town. So through the building permit process, or when the issuance of the permit is given for the pool, this is something I believe would be addressing. I'm not sure, Mario, if that was something that you were required to get when you were gaining access previously for the construction of the house. Did you get a permit from the town?
No, we discussed, but we were not.
It was never brought
okay.
up, but we will be more than willing to apply for that.
Right.
And again, it's going to be very short. All the parking and all the trades are going to be in the front in our parking spots in the driveway. They're not going to be parked there. There is going to be just a loading, unloading type of thing. Maybe an hour, 2 hours, and move out of the way. We're not going to be blocking that, and I'm going to make sure of that.
Right. And again, I suspect that no permits would be required because no physical work is being done in the road.
That's right.
Yeah. So if they were to put a curb in there, then they would need a permit from the town. But they're just using it as access. A permit is not required.
It's just for access purposes only.
Yeah.
Right. But our only role would be to ensure that if there's any damage done to the boulevard in that location, that it be reinstated to its original condition.
100%. That's not a problem.
Any other questions, Herb?
Yes, Mr. Chair. With my limited experience with these type of things with 1 foot reserves, the town would have to give them permission to cross that 1 foot reserve before they could use it for any construction. So they would need to get a permit for that.
Not a permit, just permission. A permit is required for any work.
Yes, it would need to be a written permission to cross that line.
Any other questions from the committee members first? If not, then we'll open it up. Oh, sorry, Dylan, you had one more? Go ahead.
Sorry, Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess and again, I'm not sure how this would be addressed. There was a comment made from the neighbors about a fence being built that was past the property line. I'm assuming that has been addressed.
Oh, yeah, that was addressed from day one.
Okay, I guess we'll hear about that from the neighbors because I'm hearing some shocked looks on faces. So I'll wait to hear what neighbors say. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So no further questions from the committee, and then we'll open it up to members of the audience that would like to speak, or the members of the public. Do we have an order here? We have a bunch, so why don't we start with, if somebody wants to raise their hand, because I can't tell who's who necessarily. I have a Jake. All I see is a Jake on the screen. So Jake, would you like to start?
If you could unmute yourself, please.
Jake, you'll have to unmute yourself. We can't. Oh, there we go.
There we
This
go.
is actually Peter, Penton, and Gail. Here.
Now, the problem I have, I've been in Stonegate for 33 years. I've looked after this property right up to the end, like cut it, fertilize it. And this gentleman builds the fence, but he never repairs anything. He doesn't even knock on your door until he's going, taking the fence down, cutting through. And I don't think that's fair. If the property's for sale, I'll buy it and keep them out.
So could we, Peter and Gail, just for the record, could we get your address and your location relative to the subject property?
36 Stonegate.
36. Okay, we're just going to put the overhead so we can. Okay, so you're in this.
Is that it here?
Is that the one there? He's pointing. He's moving the cursor.
Yeah. Yes.
So is that correct? Okay, thank you.
So the area you're referring to is this boulevard here that you were taking care of?
Yeah, with the fence, like right up to the, where the mailbox and all that is. I've been looking after that since we moved in. And he dug foundation work there. And next thing you know, you never did replace the lawn part. He said, "Oh, I'll make it just like new." Everything's a mess. Stones in it, no grass.
Is that the area in question here in this picture?
Yeah, right from the mill, right from the corner of the fence, past the box, up to the big tree. See, right where that Christmas tree is in his yard, so 10 feet from there, I own up to that part.
Maybe for clarification, Walter, you can outline the town's property.
So the gentleman's property extends around here, and I think it terminates right approximately here. Is that right?
Correct.
Right about here is where the property terminates?
Yeah, right
But
at
the
the
boulevard, right to the fence. So
Yeah,
it ends there, and then from that point on, it's a 1-foot reserve all the way to the end of the fence. That's the town owns. And then there's a boulevard along here that's part of the town.
And I left
right
the
away.
mailbox in the wintertime for the mail people.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or comments?
About the size of that.
I think the size of what he wants, any variance, I say no. It shouldn't be built there. It should be out in the country.
And I also don't think it should be so large. I mean, it's just going to be in our face, everybody's face. It's too big. And it's kind of like in our front yard. We sit out in our porch, we're going to look at that, and it's just too big. It should not have to be that big. And, move it up to his place, not our place. It's just not fair. It's just not fair to the neighbors. And who needs a big cabana with washrooms and everything? If he wants that, then move out to the country, get a big yard. Because it's not fair to any of the neighbors. They're all really upset.
All right, thank you for your comments. We're going to allow a few more people to speak. Was there somebody else from the neighborhood? I've got to scroll through here. There we go. Is it Neil Van Lockham? Neil, if you could unmute, and do you have any questions or comments for us?
Yeah, I have a few comments. So just for my own clarity, initially when I read through the proposal, I thought that the fence would be moving closer to the street It sounds like that will not be the case. Is that okay? That was my first question. So that's welcoming news. I will add to the comment. I find it comical that you say, you restored the boulevard to its original state. When construction was done on the house, you ripped up the boulevard. The street was a mess. The boulevard was a mess. The only reason that picture that was on the screen shows grass is because Peter on the corner planted that grass, watered that grass. So if this does get approved, it would be appreciated if you actually keep the street clean and restore it to its original state like you said you would, because that is not what happened the first time around. I have concerns with the mature trees. I would hope they won't be impacted. It doesn't sound like they will, but that was a concern of mine. It's a unique structure. It was pointed out earlier that the streetscape with the bend would not impact with the structure being put in place. I actually disagree with that comment. I think because it's on the corner, the sight lines impacts more neighbors than they otherwise would have. So for myself, we're in 43 Stonegate. When we look on the corner, you can see multiple neighbors. This would be a gigantic structure. And because of the unique situation where the rear yard is visible from multiple houses on Stonegate, which has some more older, mature houses, you have this, stucco large structure that will be right in the middle of the street and somewhat of an eyesore for everyone that needs to see it. So I'm, obviously I'm opposed to that. And I think the petition and the amount of the neighbors I've spoken to are visibly upset with this proceeding. I look at it to say this house was just constructed in the last year. Why are we having this discussion now? There should have been some foresight and planning to say, if you wanted to complete this, maybe this should have been discussed at the time of construction of the house. To bring it forward now and say, hey, now we want to extend this further out. To me, like I said, we're opposed to it. And I agree. I think it's too big. I think it's going to be visible for multiple houses and it will stand out significantly for those that are impacted.
All right. Sorry.
That's about it. I had a few more comments, but
it's all right. You've got time if you'd like to address. But I forgot to ask again. I have you down at 43 Stonegate, so maybe we can put the overhead out briefly just to see where you are again in relation to the property.
So we're not directly across, but we're just off to the right there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? And again, I'll have you maybe just give your name and address for the record. So have a Jake Adet on the screen. So you can maybe just identify yourself if I did it correctly.
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, so it's Jake and Roz.
Okay.
We're at 31 Stonegate, so right across the street on the corner. You know what, I'm gonna turn down Peter and Gail's computers so I don't echo.
Yeah, we're getting some feedback here.
Sorry, we're just helping them.
No problem.
Am I okay now?
That's better.
Sorry,
Thank
guys.
you. Thank you.
So there's 7 to 9 houses that we've been talking to on Stonegate Drive that would have their structure, the owners that are asking for this request. It definitely would have a negative impact on us. And I don't think, and we don't think that it's fair to allow one homeowner to dominate the landscape in a very old neighborhood, a subdivision. You know, the reality is this person, Mario and Ankana, and this is not personal, this is just the reality of the situation, is that you knew what lot size you were buying when you purchased your house. Your
of course,
house,
yeah.
You know, I mean, your house is a large house. It's beautiful, but it's very large and very tight. And, you know, we do think that it's a little oversized for the property lot. And, you know, we are concerned for the property line where the fence is. And so we, as 7 to 9 houses on Stonegate, urge and please that a survey be requested by the town to verify the property line, because it does look like Callie's yard has already been impacted, which is a huge concern. I don't think the gentleman agreement that you had with the neighbor, you fulfilled your end of the bargain because those posts were supposed to be moved, but I'll let Callie speak to that. In regards to the destruction on 2 occasions when we allowed you entrance through Stonegate Drive, again, like Neil was saying, that our cars were filthy. There was mud on the street. The grass was chopped up. You know, Jake and Peter put their Scott's products down. We never once saw a sprinkler come over. We never once saw you guys come over. You know, you had a lot of broken promises, which leads us to believe that we're just going to encounter the same thing. On 2 circumstances, you already proved that you weren't a man of your word. And so now that leads us to believe that we're going to be stuck cleaning the mess. And there's a lot of ramifications. I think it's naive to think you're only going to move dirt through Stonegate Drive. That's a huge building and an undertaking, not so much even the pool, but the building itself with plumbing, with all the equipment that needs to be brought in. Your frontage, and I have photos, and I volunteer to take a video because those pictures, sadly, that we saw today, I don't think give our street justice in those photos of where we live and how we're impacted and how much we can see in your yard right now. And I think, you know, I think it's naive to think that it's just going to be a little bit of dirt or you're just going to have a few vehicles. We're going to be impacted with a lot of vehicles. There's going to be a lot of mud. The trees have already been damaged from your last 2 projects. And we enjoy those trees. If you ever go through Stonegate Drive during the fall, we have the most vibrant yellow and orange trees. Photographers come and take photographs. That little park area has been kind of a haven to us too. Not only does Peter and the neighbors maintain it, but that's the place where we say, hey, how's your kids? How you doing? It's been a good COVID retreat for us too. And you know, you're kind of infringing on that. I think you can work well within the size of your property and still build a little cabana. We don't support the size, you know, sure, or the height, like 14.5 feet. It's going to look like San Quentin Prison on poor Callie's side. I feel for him. And I'm passionate about this because I think, you know, there has to be a compromise made. I don't think one homeowner should benefit where 7 to 10 others suffer. And the reality is, yeah, it's going to enhance your property for your family, but it's going to impact our property value. And that's a huge concern for many of us, especially the way property values are going. From an income tax or property tax, you know, perspective as well. Yeah, you're going to pay more property tax, but is ours going to be reduced? We sit outside, we have happy hour in our front yards. This is front facing for us. And we don't always want to see this big, we're trying to escape from this kind of concrete vision that, you know, encounters many neighborhoods now. So I really think, you know, you should have had a forethought in choosing your property size, and maybe your grandiose vision would have been better in the country where your neighbors were further away. And that is the reality. And I think the other thing you can't dispute, and even the council members that are on this call, if you were in our shoes and I was asking for this request, you probably would not support it in any capacity. So I think you really need to, we need to reflect on that, because if you live here and you hang out on Stonegate, even though your house is beautiful, it's already too big for the lot. And so we have a lot of valid concerns. And again, you know, the sad part is you showed a complete disregard for us in the past. So we're really hesitant to kind of give you an opportunity to prove yourself again. Poor Callie, and Callie's on this call, he'll speak. You know, Callie feels uncomfortable in his own house right now, and that's not fair. He's staring at nothing but your stucco, and it's a sad situation because we can see the sadness in what Callie's experienced already, and that hurts us because we on Stonegate are very close. The mature trees, I talked about that. You know, I think, again, it's inconsistent with kind of the aesthetics of our neighborhood to have this kind of big structure, cabana, pool kind of erected.
It's too large, it's too long, it's too high, it's 27 feet long. Poor Peter, who spoke earlier, he often likes to sit on his front doorstep and just while away the summer days and enjoy. And this large structure is going to be a huge impediment to his view. Not to mention, as Roz said, Cali on the other side. It's a massive structure, a 14, almost 15-foot structure.
It's going to look like a compound.
Yeah.
It's going to look like a compound. And I really feel that you would feel the same way if you were in our shoes. And that's true. I really feel that you can't dispute that. The other thing I think too is it's kind of funny and ironic that you can't put a boat or trailer or a big truck in your driveway because it's not aesthetically pleasing for your neighbor's front yard, but you can build a big behemoth like this and get away with that.
That's permanent.
That's permanent, that you can't take down, move, or anything like that. And so I think people need to realize that this is a worse situation than somebody parking a boat or trailer in their driveway.
The one last thing I would like to just comment on Mr. Basic's comment about that the mature tree on that boulevard is expendable because it is town property. Well, that's a mature tree. And I completely disagree that it's expendable just because it's town property. I don't think we need to waste town dollars by damaging one tree and potentially having to put another tree in its place. So, you know, it's accessing the property through Stonegate this will be the third time that we've used Stonegate as an access point for their property. And they do leave a lot of damage. It was never properly fixed. And we're facing more of it for however long it's going to be.
Yeah. And I think too, if you're so concerned about the tree, saving the tree on the other side of your property, the tree is in rough shape too. It hasn't been maintained or taken care of, nor is anything in the current backyard. So I kind of giggle at the maintenance of that tree or how important it is, because that's, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to cut you off. Sorry, I should have given everybody a time limit. I didn't think you would go on this long.
But these are valid points that we need
they're all
to
valid points, but I just want to hear from other people as well. There's still a few more people that have to speak.
Okay, okay. And just so we're clear, we represent 9 houses on Stonegate.
Okay, and that's part of the letter that was in here too, I think, right? Herb, you had your hand up for a question? No? Okay. Okay. Is there anybody else? Oh, Walter, sorry. Walter?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say for the record that I never said the trees were expendable in any way. I just pointed out that they are in the town boulevard and the town's responsible for the trees. I never said that they're expendable. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. And Mr. Pooney, would you like to speak to the committee or the applicant? Thank you.
Yes, like it is right next to my driveway.
Sorry, before we begin, if I could just get your full name and address for the record.
Kulwan Pooney, 42 Stonegate Drive.
42.
I'm next door neighbor.
Okay.
And his backyard is my front yard.
Gotcha.
He's trying to build this building 10 feet away from my driveway. If I park in my driveway, if I park the trailer or boat or something, city doesn't like it. But he's building that 2-story building right next to my driveway. And it's not acceptable. I don't like it. And the other thing, when he built the house, and he built it so high and blocked my windows and all that. Now he's talking about if he built that his Covano thing close to his house, he's blocking the windows. He concerns about his windows. When he built the house, he didn't concern about my windows. And then when he was putting a fence, he's asked me to remove some bushes and stuff. He says he wants to put the fence. I said, okay, go ahead and remove the bushes. And he put the fence, start putting 2 feet onto my property, put the post. When I was at work, I came back and post was 2 feet onto my property. I asked him to remove it. He removed it on the same place the fence was originally there. That fence is 100% on my property, still not on a property line. If he puts the fence on a property line, his house is overhang, it touches the fence. It's that close to the fence, that close to my house, that much. And I don't like it, that big structure built in right there. It shouldn't be built in there. If you want to have that big a structure, something, you should move it in bigger lot in the countryside. It'll be right on my front of my face and beside the driveway, 5 feet away from my driveway.
All right, thank you for those comments. Is there anybody else here wishing to speak? Before we go back to the owner, I'm just gonna make sure we've covered everybody. Is there anybody else, Nancy, that's a delegate? No? Lily Bruce, did you wish to speak at all? We can't see your video, we just see your name and you're on mute, so I take that means no.
Hi, sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Hi, could you just
Sorry.
give us your name and address for the record?
Yeah, it's Lindsay Bruce, and
Lindsay?
I just missed the 10 Shoreline at the very beginning of the meeting, so I just wanted to tune in and confirm that everything was fine. So I can say wait till the end though.
Yep, sorry, it was deferred.
Okay,
It was
perfect.
deferred, so no need to come back if you don't want.
Amazing. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
No problem.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
All right, so we have no further delegations, and we'll just allow the owners to respond to some of the comments or questions that were raised.
Yes, I mean, first of all, we would like to apologize for any inconvenience that we caused. The reason, I mean, the backyard was part of the plan to be done at the same time. It didn't happen. There were a couple of different reasons. There is no excuse for that. So the only reason the back, which is the city property, was we did put grass, and no, we did not water it, but that was, and again, it's not an excuse in any way. It's just, we were planning to do it back to back, didn't think it was gonna take this long, and that's really the reason. But our plan is actually to make sure we restore that the right way. With Kelly, the same thing. I would like to apologize. We did believe that the posts were moved. And yes, I understand initially from when the property was built and the fence was built back many years ago, that was the fence line, and we basically followed that. And I do apologize again. I do believe that we did move the fence. And the reason for this discussion and for our application, again, we didn't know. We don't know that this is an issue, but if it's an issue, we're not here to create any discomfort with any neighbors. We love having, again, a good relationship with every neighbor. And again, I cannot apologize enough for the disruption that we caused during the construction. We're gonna try to make sure that this doesn't happen. That's basically what we have to say.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go back to the committee members. Did you have any further comments or questions on this application, having heard the neighbors and the planning report and so on and the owners? Danielle, did you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions. I'll try to make them as brief as possible. To staff, was there any previous planning approvals, minor variances, site plan, or anything like that that was required for the original house construction? Or are you aware? Sorry.
Walter, are you aware? Nancy?
I'm not aware. I don't think so.
I was going to ask the same thing. For some reason, I remember something on the street. I can't recall if it was this one, but maybe I could ask, what's the lot coverage? I mean, you would have done the check when they came through. What's the size of the house, square footage wise, footprint wise, and then what's the cover? What would the coverage work out? There's a 35% maximum, I see. So with this structure, what would that bring it to?
30%. Covered 35%.
Yeah, I don't, unfortunately, I don't have those numbers for you. And I don't recall if there was a previous application. Just going by eye, it appears to be substantially less than 35%.
Can you flip quickly to the aerial? That's pretty close, if not over, but you add another 27 by 11 in the back. That's another 200 and 300 square feet. Just an observation, but I'm sure, I mean, they would have to comply with it anyway. So if they, the calculation must have been met at some point or made at some point. Danielle, did you have any further questions?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for some further clarification, the variances that's before the committee and what we're making a decision on is only for the rear yard reduction and the street yard reduction. There is no proposals for height increase, no proposals for a 2-story accessory structure. There's no proposals for a lot coverage increase or a size of the structure increase. And there's no proposal for variance for the southerly side yard setback to Mr. Pooney's property. Is that correct?
That's
To the
correct.
applicant? Okay. Or thank you, Mr. Basic. Then my last question, I guess, would be to staff. I'm just reading through my scratched notes here. Mr. Basic, is there an opportunity or a possibility that some type of securities could be obtained to ensure that that boulevard is reinstated back to its, I guess, what would have been its original condition prior to the construction of the house? That can be held in trust until an inspection can be occurred, and those securities could be released then back to the applicant, thusly ensuring that the property or the boulevard is returned back to its original state, and hopefully providing some type of assurances to the neighbors in this aspect?
I don't, there isn't a requirement for a site plan approval. So there's no opportunity to require a security in that regard. I believe there's a requirement when somebody applies for a pool permit. There's a bond deposit that's required. So that would be the only thing that we would normally require for the construction of a pool. The building permit for the accessory structure, there's no site plan standard or site plan requirement in our site plan control bylaw for that kind of a structure. So the only opportunity that we would have would be the bond that would be required in association with the pool permit.
Okay, thank you.
But I'd have to defer to our public works department, who really look after the road allowance and the boulevards, to really answer that question fully. So again, I'm just going by memory.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Basic. Sorry, as a follow-up, one last question, I apologize. To the applicants then, is your intention then to be doing the construction of the pool at the same time as this cabana? This way it would limit the amount of access required from Stonegate?
That's right,
okay.
yes, 100%.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions for now, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any other questions from the committee members? Herb? Or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just along that same line of the pool, will there be any variances coming in for the setbacks for the pool? And also, Walter, you may be able to answer this. Will the pool be part of lot coverage when it comes in?
I'm not aware of any variances that would be required for the pool, and in terms of lot coverage, and in-ground pool is not included in the lot coverage calculation. Lot coverage calculations are only from exterior faces of exterior walls of buildings.
Any other questions, Herb? You're up.
Okay. Just the question about to the owners, if they're planning on coming in with any variances for the pool.
No.
No, we actually already have a permit submitted.
No, that we haven't asked for that. The only thing that we asked for was that the property line setback, no height like it was mentioned before, no height, none of that, no. We're planning to stay within the guidelines.
Right. Any other questions from the committee members at all? Dylan or Adam? Yeah, I've got some concerns with this too. I mean, I think because of the unique nature of the lot, it's actually sitting in the front yard of people that are on Stonegate. So I would be offended by it too. I mean, most of the time we're dealing with sheds and variances in backyards, and it's affecting backyards of other people. This case, it's because of the unique nature of the lot, it's really going to be sticking out like a sore thumb. And I would feel for Mr. Pooney as well, sitting right beside his property. It is an oversized house. I mean, if you can't fit what you need in that size house, I think you find another property. I would disagree with my with some of the comments raised by the owner. I think it's too big, and it's just the location of it. Again, it wouldn't be so bad if it was in a rear yard affecting rear yards, but because of where it is, the construction doesn't bother me. And everybody goes through construction period. That can be remedied easily enough. But I think the permanency of this structure, the fact that it's going to be left on the street, and thanks for bringing it to my attention, it's actually 27 by 11. I mean, that's huge. So I think I would be not in favor of this thing at all. So those are my comments and question before we ask for vote. But I think I saw another hand up or somebody waving. Did you? We'll just allow you to briefly speak one more time.
Briefly. I just have a question.
Briefly, yes.
What is the proposed duration, length of time for this project? Just because, you know, we have soiled windows, soiled cars, that sort of stuff.
You're going to have to ask the applicant that, Mary. What would the length of the construction period be for
so
like
based
a van and pool?
so based on the contract we have with obviously the contractor, he said it's going to be from start to finish 2 months. But I did mention very clearly that the back has to be done first, and then we carry on obviously with the front. And I'm assuming probably from start to finish about a month and a half, the most.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Is everybody prepared to vote on this matter? You did have a chance to see the conditions that were suggested by planning and public works. So just before we call for the motion, I'm just going to read them out. The conditions they're suggesting in this, if it were to be approved with conditions, are as follows: provide clarification to Public Works to how the proposed washroom will connect to the internal existing domestic services. And number 2, it's regarding the archaeological requirement, and that's just a red flag for that. So that condition has also been added. Is there a mover and seconder on the motion then, either to approve, deny, or approve with conditions? Danielle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mirror a lot of your concerns and the neighbors' concerns. For those of you who are not aware, there's 4 tests that we need to take into consideration when it comes to variances. One of which that keeps sticking in my head is whether or not it's desirable and appropriate. And it is my opinion that the variance for the reduction to the rear yard is not desirable or appropriate for this area. So at that, based on that, I'm going to move to deny the application.
Okay, do we have, oh, sorry.
Sorry, just with the understanding of the residents that the applicant still does have the ability to construct a cabana that complies with that rear yard setback requirement of 4.5 meters, which is approximately 14.7 feet. So a structure could still be built there. It just won't be so close to the rear property line. I just want to make everybody aware of that. And if they do comply, there is going to be no public process. As Mr. Basic has already identified, this is not subject to site plan and they can go straight to building permit. Okay, so again, sorry, to reiterate, I am moving to deny this application as I feel it does not meet the test of appropriate and desirable.
Thank you, Herb. Is that a seconder?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I second that on the same grounds that it's not desirable for the development of the neighborhood.
Any further discussion then on the motion to deny? No further discussion. All those in favor to deny the application, say aye or raise your hand. Opposed, if any? Dylan? Adam hasn't voted yet. I don't see a hand up.
Yeah, actually, I'm abstaining because I didn't have a chance to view the property.
Okay. Sorry, that's the part I missed at the very beginning, so I apologize for that. All right, so it was denied. So there is a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. You are there is an opportunity to appeal the decision of the committee within 20 days of the mailing of the receipt of the decision. All right, thanks everybody for attending, and I believe that's all the applications we have this evening. There being nothing else, then we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.